Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to do another champion design breakdown, this time talking about Yorick, the Shepherd of Lost Souls. Now, on release, Yorick had objectively the worst kit ever designed in League of Legends history, and I'm saying this without a trace of hyperbole. It was bad. It was non-intuitive, it was uninteractive, it was clunky, there wasn't a lot of counterplay involved in it, and unfortunately, it was very good. If you didn't know what to do against Yorick, you were probably going to die repeatedly. It was buggy. It just was a complete and utter mess. In fact, it was so bad to the point that for 5 years, up until his VGU went through, Yorick was not on the free-to-play champion rotation, nor did he receive a single skin. That's how bad it was. Even some of Riot's worst mistakes have gotten skins and have been allowed to be on the free-to-play rotation. Yorick literally was not allowed those luxuries because of how bad his kit was. So Yorick is no stranger to bad kits. However, post-VGU, I think that Yorick has an exceptionally well-designed kit nowadays. I think it's one of the best designed kits in the game that neatly balances his thematic needs with gameplay elements and even gives him a well-defined niche that is evident even without a need to read a champion guide and find out what he wants to do. Yorick also executes on one of the most difficult archetypes for Riot to balance ever, which is that of the minion-mancer. Now, minion-mancing has historically been very difficult for Riot to actually deal with because of its capacity to ping-pong wildly between too overbearing and too underwhelming. If it's too strong, minion-mancers feel like you're fighting against their minions and never against the champion themselves. Heimerdinger is a great example here. He feels pretty sad to play if he's completely out of turret kits. You basically have two buttons and 2 buttons alone. But if he does have all of his turrets down, it just is an absolute nightmare to try and play through him. It feels like you're laning against Heimerdinger's turrets and Heimerdinger, not Heimerdinger the champion as a whole. Like, he's almost irrelevant. I just care about how powerful his turrets are. On the flip side, if a minion-mancer's minions are too weak, they may as well not even be there as a part of the champion's kit. Elise, for example, has spiderlings. You might be forgiven for not noticing them because they don't do anything. They follow her around, they follow her through her mobility, and there's functionally no difference between fighting a 5 spiderling Elise and a 2 spiderling Elise for all the good it does Elise's opponents, right? And Elise even doesn't say, oh, I don't have any spiderlings, I'm very weak, I should go farm those up real quick. She doesn't because they're irrelevant to her success, right? And she's supposed to be a minion-mancer, but the minions are there as like an afterthought. They're just kind of thrown on and tacked onto the kit, and realistically, they don't do anything, so why are they there? It's also very difficult to design because Riot don't want to go full RTS and give you multiple units to control. I think Annie and Shaco are now the only characters in the game to have discrete control over their summoned pets, and they only have 1 pet apiece. You can imagine how difficult it would be if Heimerdinger or Elise or Malzahar had to individually control each of their summoned voidlings or spiderlings or turrets, right? It would be nigh impossible for the scope of what League of Legends is supposed to be about. Despite this all, Yorick is a minion-mancer who was designed around the concept and who does it extremely well. He somehow manages to avoid the overbearing aspect, as well as avoid the completely underwhelming aspect. Yorick has to fight in concert with his summons, and he's not able to really do anything without them, but simultaneously the summons aren't so overbearing that it feels impossible to play against Yorick specifically without having to chew through all of his dudes first. I think primarily this is because that everything Yorick does is either a summon or directly interacts with his summon. His Q and passive both create graves, which directly allow him to summon the minions in the first place. His W technically is a summon ability in and of itself. I don't think it's coded as a minion, but I believe it's coded as a unit still. It allows him to trap champions in a pit so he can beat them up with his summons. Morning Mist directs his Mist Walkers to attack the marked targets and awakens nearby graves without Yorick actually needing to press a button. And Eulogy of the Isles, his ultimate ability, is a super summon for Yorick that comes with Mist Walkers as well, right? It's a summon that gives you summons. It's crazy how well the kit is designed around just the concept of Yorick is constantly bringing dudes out of the ground to have you fight against them, but it doesn't feel overbearing because Yorick is designed very well around it. The Mistwalkers are essentially uncontrollable. They'll just walk down a lane and fight whatever they happen to be in front of, whether that's a champion, a minion, or a tower, up until the point at which they die. And they're really the primary summons that Yorick has. The Maiden of the Mist exists there as well, but even then, Yorick can't directly control the Maiden of the Mist. She fights whatever she wants to, and while she'll try to prioritize things that Yorick is attacking, or will try to follow Yorick if he tries to leave a fight, fundamentally, Yorick can't objectively control her. And this then means that champions have ways of playing around Yorick's kit. If they dodge the E, for example, Yorick's minions will haplessly attack whatever's nearby without actually punching the champion, who is probably going to then go on a Mistwalker stomping day and kill all of Yorick's summons off. Conversely, getting hit by the E allows Yorick to pick a priority target and say, I want you guys to fight this one in particular, and that's sort of the extent of Yorick's summoning ability. This means that if Yorick wants to do more damage, he needs to also wade into the fight as well to do some of the work himself. In fact, the Maiden of the Mist doesn't actually, I think she has like 0 base damage at rank 1. She literally doesn't do any damage at rank 1 without Yorick actively attacking the same target as the Maiden, which means that then Yorick has to participate. You're not fighting against just Yorick's minions, or, I mean, theoretically you could, but that would mean Yorick is depriving himself of all of this other value he could theoretically have. He has to get involved with it alongside them, and that means that you can play against Yorick at the same time as you play against his minions, which then, it just perfectly strikes the balance of minion-mancer, but also has to do things on his own, of having control over all of these summons, but also not so much control that it would break what it means to play League of Legends. Which I really, really like how this kit is designed and how it all sort of meshes together. And I think this kit could still lead to some frustrating gameplay loops, but because of the grave mechanic, Yorick avoids I think a very interesting scenario in which if Yorick had to summon his minions one at a time, he would summon a minion, his opponent would kill it, he would summon another minion, his opponent would kill it, etc., etc. The graves allow Yorick to build up a small wave of zombies, which he can then awaken all at the same time and send at his opponent, which then allows him to actually have the champion fantasy of summoning a zombie army. He can even, he can awaken starting at 3, but he can get up to 4 minions as well, which allows Yorick to potentially go for broke and say, I'm not going to summon yet, I'm going to wait for my guys to show up. The fact that the Maiden also summons minions as well means that even if Yorick is without graves, he's not without options because he can pop R, and the Maiden comes with minions of her own, allowing Yorick to always have summons on deck as long as he has access to his ultimate. And I think that these summoning mechanics give Yorick a guaranteed niche as a champion. Summoning minions allows Yorick to push lanes more quickly. He's got more minions in his wave, and as we all know, if you have more minions in your wave than your opponent, your wave will push. His Q is an auto-attack reset that works against towers, and the Maiden can be directed to push a lane on her own, and will even summon minions while she does it, freeing Yorick to then go push a separate lane if he so chooses. And in fact, if Yorick spawns Mistwalkers in one lane, sets the Maiden free in another lane, and then goes to a third lane, he could push every single lane all at once at the same time with just him, which is like, only Yorick can do something like this. But this then means that Yorick is obviously a split pusher, right? Riot didn't have to tell the community, Yorick is a split pushing champion, and you should try to execute a split pushing strategy with this champion, and we're going to specifically tell you he's a split pusher. You just look at his kit and you say, yeah, this champion works for split pushing. He has all of the tools necessary to do this job. And this then means that Yorick not only has a mechanical niche as this sort of summoning necromancer type character, but also a gameplay niche as a split pushing champion. And it just all works so well together that Riot, again, they don't have to make any of this explicit. They don't have to tell you this is what we want you to do on this champion. It just makes sense by looking at Yorick's kit, by playing him, and by doing what he already wants to do. So I think it's just been a massive, massive glow up for Yorick. I think he's one of the most criminally underrated champions in the game due to how well designed he is. And honestly, if you even have a passing interest in top lane, I recommend you try to pick him up and play him because that's how good I think his kit is. But you guys should let me know what you think of Yorick's kit down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on him, on his kit, anything Yorick related, leave that all down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.